on my show, the Louisa Project 2027. That was a plug. And on my show, Louisa Project, we discuss education, right? We and these are the 5 things where what I've learned over time. And please, Zakia, if you add something you want to add to this, or something I need to take off this list, because you're more of an expert in this field than I am. This is just education is my passion. I'm not an expert in any of this. So these are the things that I've learned over time that really impact education. Property taxes, that's a big one. All this funding, people being funded by schools being funded by local property taxes. So of course, if the property isn't worth much, you're not going to get much into the school system. The pressures, economic and social pressures on parents. Like Jesse spoke about income. And people aren't making much money, so you got to work 2 and 3 jobs, or you don't have a job, you become depressed, and so on and so forth. Lack of disposable income to donate to schools to supplement the failings of the property tax system. Low wages for teachers. You can't keep good teachers if you don't pay a good wage. And limited programs, especially in communities of color and communities of need. You don't have gifted programs, you don't have programs, special needs programs, and so on and so forth.
On all fronts in regards to your list, I think you were right on. I think, what we experience in this world of choice, that folks like to throw around that word choice so much, is that for 10 years, from the time this lawsuit in New York State, the highest court upheld it and said, yes, New York State, you're not meeting your constitutional obligation to provide every child with a sound basic education. That we parents, educators, students have gone up to our state capitol in Albany, have spoken to governors, including our current governor, Governor Cuomo, to the state legislature, to people that represent us in office, as Senator Turner said, and they have made the choice. It is a choice in the $1 billion budget to not fund over 10 years an equity lawsuit. That if any of us it was a lawsuit brought against any of us, and for 10 years we hadn't fulfilled it or paid it, not only would there be interest on top of interest, but we'd probably be in jail, right? And so I always question, why is that? Why is that okay for Black and brown children to not experience art, to not experience music, to not experience sports programs, right? To not have access to advanced placement courses to get them to the next level, right? To not have access to after school programs that keep them off the street. Why is that? Why are we making choices to not fund that? And in the frame of understanding, and in New York, I don't know how many people know, 50% of the children in New York City live in poverty. And someone once said, if 50% of children had a cold, it would be a state of emergency. So why is it not a state of an emergency? And I go to, it's because the children that are being impacted by this are Black and brown and poor kids. And I think across the state, it's not new. It's not something different. We've seen it in Chicago. We've seen it, in Philadelphia. We've seen it all over this country in regards to there's tons of equity lawsuits because we have to sue to get what's due us. And then when we sue and we win it, we still are fighting years, decades later to get that money to schools. Meanwhile, we've lost generations of children who didn't have access to that. Black, brown, and poor children, once again, across this country. And in the same vein, we will not make the choice to tax the 1%, people who have enormous money, who will never want for anything. We won't even tax 1% on the 1% because, quote unquote, it's not the sexy thing to do to tax people. Well, I say it's not the sexy thing to do to starve our communities of opportunities, to deny our children of dreams, of fulfilling those dreams. I say that's not the sexy thing to do. So what we need folks to do, not only in New York, and that's part of our fight that we're doing around the Campaign for Fiscal Equity. I don't know how many people know. I just spent, myself and 20 other people just did a 150-mile walk to Albany. Bodies on the line, boots to the ground. And I brought my 15-year-old son with me to do it. And he was at the front the whole 10 days. Never complained once. Did the walk and understood the importance of doing this walk because he heard the stories in every city that we passed to get to Albany of inequity and things that children were not receiving. So I think you're right. Your list is right on. And I think we need to get back in this country and ensuring that those who have do need to pay more because equity is not equality.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And one of the things that I'm sorry, just before we get to you, one of the things that that bothers me is, and as Nina said, and as we all know, that there's three things in this in our nation that help you succeed. Right? Is number one is your having access to capital. Number two is a decent education, and number three, have an affluent and or influential peer group. Without those three things, there is no success. And the foundation for that is having a decent education. And we have to have the systems in place so we can reach out for the others if we don't have them already. So I think a lot of the things that we're missing are easily fixed. Like you said, it's not. Some people say it's not sexy to tax people, but when Bernie Sanders was talking about free college, it was a less than 1% tax on Wall Street speculation. What do we do with 2% tax? It's not going to hurt them. What could we do with that 2, 3, 4, 5% tax? It's speculation. They won't even see it, and it also serve the purpose of cooling the market a little bit. So there's no downside to stuff like that. You know,
it's only downsides to the folks who have the money and don't want to give up, or who have legislators in their pocket, and they don't want to upset the folks who are kind of filling their coffers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we saw that today and yesterday with somebody's response to the pipeline. But we're not gonna go there. We're not gonna do that today. We're not gonna. Jesse, I don't want to mess up your train, so we're gonna let you slide in there before I mess it up for you.
well, hey, I'm just gonna
Jesse in Congress. I don't know what's going on.
Well, ahead, I'm just gonna say, some of the things that I've noticed on the campaign trail here in East Alabama. And from talking with a lot of educators, a lot of parents, I have a 9-year-old who attends public school, and I plan on keeping him in public school because I believe it's important that he grows up around people from all different walks of life, because that's where empathy comes from. If you live around a particular demographic and there's never any struggles, no problems, everything is just great. Well, when you see that, you blame the people instead of realizing the system inadequacies that place those people in that position. So again, some of the things that I've discussed with people, having educated members of the Board of Education, electing members of the Board of Education who have experience in education. Teachers are taking out of their paycheck to subsidize their classrooms. Greatness never goes on sale. Greatness costs what it costs. That's just how it is. And if we can spend billions of dollars overseas in all of these countries, providing aid to people who want to kill us, providing aid to all of these countries who are leading us in many different areas, and ignore education and ignore the kids that are living in poverty, as Zakiya was so eloquently explained, and then to think that we have veterans, we have members of our military, our armed forces, who have kids who attend these schools. They go overseas and fight for their country. They are fighting for a better education and a better future for their kids and their grandchildren. And they get home and their kids are exposed to inadequate healthcare, inadequate schools. And oh, by the way, if you are that military family member and you're married, your spouse may have to get a job that's going to take that, that particular spouse out of the home for an extended period of time away from the kids. It's the situation that our education system in right now. It's at the bottom. But again, when we have legislators, when we have leaders and politicians and parents and administrators and teachers who care about the future of public education, if someone made a comment on one of my Facebook posts about education, how can I, what benefit do I see in public education? Well, when public education is adequately funded and supported, public education is a beautiful thing. Like I said, you know, I graduated from high school with a lot of people, and we all graduated from a public high school. And there are people who are doctors, attorneys, you know, all different professions in this world. They all come from, you know, those public schools. So I will, and I'm saying this to the people in the 3rd District of Alabama and Americans that will also benefit from having a congressman that feels strongly about supporting public education, whether it's special education, whether it's bringing in new types of research and technology to offer these kids. So again, we can prepare them for the skills and the jobs of the 21st century. When we remove home economics and auto shop and woodworking and plumbing and all welding, all of those trades from the school system, we essentially remove the value of work from the school system. So we're taking kids and putting them in a system, no longer teaching them how to think, but teaching them how to test. And then when they graduate, we put them out there in the streets, expecting them to know how to work. And so I believe we have to take advantage of the opportunities we have in public education. And that's simply making sure that every child, whether they're living in poverty or not, is afforded a high quality, well-funded education. And every teacher who are teaching every one of those kids are entitled to a livable wage. I just think, you know, it's absurd that they have to spend a dime of their money to subsidize their classroom.
Absolutely. All right, Jesse, thank you very much.